because, okay. All right. I think I finally got everyone on the same call. What a mess. I will fix that for next week. Um, so sorry about that mess up. Welcome everyone. We have Anita Toth today. No, we don't. She's not on here. Okay. We will have Anita Toth today talking with us about retention and expansion. So that should be a good conversation. Yesterday was the Customer Marketing Alliance Summit. I heard you guys all talking about it. I thought it was okay on LinkedIn Live. It was pretty glitchy at first. And I think it is a little confusing that they want you to be a member to see the recordings when the recordings will probably still be on LinkedIn. I don't know if you can take those off or not, but I do have the links there in the community. And yeah, I really liked Kevin's, and there were a couple others that I thought were really good. I kind of hope to see more other topics, I guess, more topics. I had a hard time hearing Hugh. I think his mic was not great, or my ears are just old. And the first call with Dean, I don't remember her name, but it was hard for me to listen. And that could have just been because sometimes I don't hear accents super well. So that's my own fault.
And yet I had that same problem, and I usually can hear accents well. So that was what was weird for me.
Yeah, what everybody else think about the sessions yesterday? Any that you really loved or any of that? I guess that's kind of what I was interrupting when I thought we were getting started.
I like the cab discussion. I will say that one. A lot of that just had to do with chat too, following along with the chat, because at that point I could finally follow along with the chat. So seeing what other people were saying in there, as well as hearing them, the conversational piece about it sometimes really works. And sometimes you're like, okay, it's going in this direction. But then to see what people were saying was really helpful.
Yeah, I thought the cabs one was decent too. I wasn't listening as much as I was trying to do other things, but it was one of the ones that stuck out to me.
Really liked the session from Dropbox as well.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one just yet. So I'll probably go back and listen to that because I like to see what they're up to there.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one as well, Ari. And yeah, I was reaching out to Deanna and told her I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I don't play favorites, but I would say that the two that I went back and I told my team, hey, I want you to go listen to these into detail, because it's hard to listen sometimes when you're also trying to communicate with everyone and jumping around. I want you to listen to these two in detail. And it was Kevin's and Dropbox's.
Yeah, Kevin's are usually pretty good. Dean Lindsay, it was a great session. Mattia says it probably was. I just couldn't handle I don't know, maybe it could have been a little bit of echo and stuff too, but it was me. It was me. I have no idea how good it was because it was me. So I do have Anita on the call today. Thank you everyone for kind of following along, even though I don't always have it together, or you could say I probably rarely have it together. But I'm a human and I'm doing my best. And I think sometimes just technology can be a little difficult, as we saw yesterday, like trying to find what link do you log in? Where do you go to get on the LinkedIn Live? Which one is it? I feel like all of the event companies are doing that lately. My least favorite one is go to your email and find the link to log in with your unique ID. I'm just like, no, I'll miss the whole event. I'm done. Can't be doing that. Anyhow, Anita is here to discuss retention and expansion with us. Anita, if you want to hop on or hop in and share who you are and what you do, please go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I was one of those people that had some challenges with tech, and that's why I'm a few minutes late, but it's great to be here. Mary, thank you for inviting me. It's my first time, obviously, to this group, so I'm hoping to be able to, share my experience, answer questions, whatever it is we're here to do is to the best of my ability. So my name's Anita Toth. I'm the Chief Churn Crusher at ATI, and we are a customer retention education strategy and education firm, and we work specifically with B2B SaaS companies. So customer retention is at the heart of what we do. Actually, right before I jumped on this call, I was writing an article around building your first retention strategy. So that's well in my mind if you want to ask any questions around that. Otherwise, I'll just sit back and let you take over, Mary, guide me on how this whole thing works. And yeah, hopefully we'll have fun.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, we normally have just a discussion back and forth with people asking questions about what you do and where there are strengths and things that customer marketing can work along with. So I think that'd kind of be my first question. Everyone can either jump in at any point. We do that. And we have the chat as well where people can jump in. So yeah, do you have advice for customer marketers that are looking to help with that retention and maybe some expansion too?
Yeah, I think just like there tends to be the great divide between pre-sale and post-sale marketing, and I owned a Facebook ad agency way back in the day where it was like shooting fish in a barrel. Facebook ads were brand new. Fairly early digital marketing. So at the heart of what I do is like I still very much love marketing, but customer marketing is very different from acquiring new customers. And I think the biggest challenge you have is that you're building relationships while you are marketing to customers, whereas with acquiring new customers and that type of marketing, it's kind of, I have actually a diagram. I'm just going to lay it out for you if you can picture it in your minds. Otherwise, I'll try to bring it up as other people are talking. But acquiring a new customer is a lot like dating. You're out there, you're marketing, you're putting your stuff out there. You start chatting with a few people. Maybe some of them, go along further into the sales process, become, engaged, married, however you want to look at it. You're in the marriage part of the marketing. You're trying to keep the relationship alive, keep it growing. And the stakes I find are very different on the customer marketing side of things because of that element of there's already been an established relationship with the customers. So it's how do you keep that alive? So what we do, and this is what I would recommend doing for all marketers, doesn't matter what side of the sort of customer line you're on, that is speaking directly to customers. Surveys are great. They'll give you a little bit of information. The problem with that is there's no context to it. What you really want to do is talk directly to customers. Best way to do that are through interviews. So get a set of even 5 questions and reach out to customers, ask those same questions, look at the responses you get, and you'll start getting a better understanding of, when customers make the decision to upsell or, cross sell, purchase something else, what's going through their minds, where, they might be in different parts of the customer journey, depending on whether you segment your customers or not. And so it's really talking with them. And I know marketers find this really challenging. It's sometimes easier to just rely on metrics than it is to go face to face with customers and ask them, what is it that makes you stay? What do you like? What don't you like? If we were to put this offer in front of you, is this something that's appealing? Is it not? So it's asking those types of questions to start getting some data that then you can start making some decisions on, either by testing things out or by going to speak to other customers, either through surveys or further interviews, to find out, hey, is what we're hearing actually accurate across our entire customer base, or is it just relative to the relevant to this particular customer segment? So that was my whole big nutshell. I'm gonna see if I can find that diagram of mine. I did not do it justice. I'm sorry. It sounded very convoluted and all over the place. But when you see it, of course, it makes sense that you're in the marriage, you're in the retention, you are developing relationships with customers as you are also marketing to them, hoping that they will buy more and stay longer.
I agree. What do others think before I share some of my thoughts?
There it is. Can I just share this quickly,
Yeah.
Mary?
Sure,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like, hold on, where is it? There it is. So this is what I was talking about. This makes me feel a little more comfortable. I felt like I was kind of all over the place. Can you see the can you see?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So as I was saying, this is where it becomes really, really critical with what you do. I love the fact that there is focus on relationship in marketing. Many marketers, as you know, are often just focused on this part. I think the best marketers not only focus on, this part of the relationship, but also are looking to build this long-term relationship so that when you come in as customer marketers, that it's much easier then to continue to build the relationship and hopefully keep it in this sort of like green to yellow zone versus having the relationship develop into the red zone and with churn. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's what I was trying to describe in the beginning.
Love it. Said that. Yeah, I like that. I think as customer marketers, there's a lot of information we learn that can go back and help the people that are working on that lead generation in the beginning of the journey.
I think we share across the board, across that whole life cycle, right, Mary? I mean, we start out with the activities that we learn about from our customers and how successful particular plays were that we can send back to demand gen. But we should be involved in every step of that life cycle to take us to the point where we can have those conversations that Anita was talking about, right? So by the time we get to the day-to-day of being married, that we can have the pointed conversations that ask those what sound like tough questions. But if you've been successful at building that relationship from the beginning, then they're just a conversation, right? It's not a tough question. It's just a conversation, which is less confrontational, right? Not as much change management required, yada, yada, yada.
The other place, I like your point there, Christine. The other place where you can ask these questions, if you can't reach out directly to customers, is if you have customer forums or a community forum, like something like that, where your customers congregate. You're probably already in there listening to some of the things that they're saying, but this just gives further opportunity to collect very pointed data that's very specific to your needs that you can then use. And I fully agree that the feedback loop is critical, and it's so underused or not even used at all. And so again, like the better the leads are that are collected from you call demand gen coming through, then the more customers that will end up staying, which then just gives you a richer opportunity. But it's building in those feedback processes, which sometimes can be a bit challenging, or is perhaps a little more advanced, depending on the size of the company.
So
wonder-
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Mary. Lost my mind for a second. Oh yeah, I'm a big believer in picking up the phone and just talking, but how do you scale that? I mean, if you have lots and lots of customers, how do you make that work? I think you might have answered my question with the customer forum, but what else?
Yeah, great question, Kathy. Actually, the customer interviews are not meant to be for scale ever. They are meant to go really deep. So think of it this way: surveys, very shallow and can go wide. Interviews, deep and narrow. And then what you do is when you find information from your interviews that you're like, I don't know if it's just this group I happen to speak to that they all share this common characteristic, or if it's just this customer segment, then what you do is ask questions like in the forum or send out surveys to validate what you've heard in the interviews. So that's how you scale it, is with another method like surveys, going through asking that same question. Hey, whatever it might be, we found this, and speaking with some of our customers, who else is experiencing this, or what do you think of this? And then you can, you'll get the responses you need to say, you know what? Yep, absolutely. So now we see that it's not just this particular little group of people that we spoke to that has this particular, whatever it is, aspect or, thought or experience. We see this across a larger segment, or sorry, larger group of our customers.
Yep.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask? Oh, sorry. Can I ask, Anita? It sounds like you have a very data-driven approach to doing this. Do you have a specific tool, or do you kind of set your customers up with a specific tool to help keep track of that data? Like, I know we have CRMs, most companies have HubSpot or Salesforce, and that's all fine and well, but is all of that information in the CRM, or do you keep it elsewhere?
It really depends on the company, Mary. Like, I've seen everything from spreadsheets right to there's companies that do voice of the customer, which will take your surveys and your unstructured data and use AI to look for those themes or those common patterns across larger. So, if you're running 30, 40, 50 customer interviews. So it really depends. I hate that answer, but it really does on what you're.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you have one that you recommend for like your favorite?
I don't. I stay very agnostic here. I hope you can appreciate that I'm going to just stand my ground in nowhere. I have a lot of companies reach out every week asking me to either promote or look at theirs. We do have our own that we use. It's proprietary. And then we use just whatever it is that our clients already have. So if they're already using spreadsheets, then that's what we go with. We're trying to get them more in the practice of doing interviews and combining surveys and interviews together versus trying to introduce new software to them.
Gotcha. No, that's fine. I think, and there's, I just talked to a new company last week that does a lot of automation from your Google Sheets.
Yep.
And they have like a lot of, you can use it for free for quite a bit of data before you have to pay for it. And then of course there's Airtable that
Yep.
is probably a little bit more expensive, but has automations for your data. And I think those are very interesting and helpful and useful, but there's also the learning curves. So I wanted to ask, with a lot of us are focusing on expansion this year, where some of us are doing ABM, we're doing all these different things. We've been working with customers for a while, and now we have to tie it back to revenue. How do you suggest, like, what do you suggest to companies right now, specifically in the B2B SaaS area, maybe, to help with that retention? Is it the same going with that data, or has anything changed for you in the last year or so that you're giving different advice?
So we're a research company first. This is where I'm gonna suggest everybody. Everybody look at data. We're great at collecting a lot of hard data, the data that is more complicated, but again, deeper, and better, and better in giving opportunities to hear the nuances, to hear new things coming down the pipeline. I think it's more important than ever with the focus on expansion, an economy that is retracting a bit, is to go even in further and speak with your customers and start looking for those nuances. So as you start this practice over time, what you start noticing is their language will change. You're going to hear them refer to the situations they're in a little bit differently. And then what happens over time is you start to realize, oh, wow, we have this new trend emerging that we didn't see. So rather than being sort of caught either on the back foot and realizing you missed an opportunity, what you have in continually speaking with your customers, and I don't mean every single day, but it could be something like 5 a month, is you start seeing the changes over time. And it's those changes that will start showing you where these opportunities are for expansion. And they may be where you're at right now, and it becomes validation toward that. But at some point, you're going to start hearing different things creeping in, and then it becomes, oh wait, this might be an opportunity here that we didn't see before, because there's some emerging trend because of, well, the world constantly changes. So I
Yeah.
think more importantly than ever, it's getting out and talking to your customers. Hard data doesn't ever give you the why. It doesn't tell you the context. You're creating that story out of hard data. You're
Right.
the company, whoever's observing the hard data is creating the story behind it. But by talking to your customers, they will tell you what they're thinking, more importantly, what they're feeling, what they're afraid of, what they're excited about. And those are the things that become the gold that you're looking for to retain them longer and for the expansion motion too.
Yeah, I think that's why I talk to a lot of companies about community, and I think it can be underestimated what you can do with it, because there's still a lot of companies that think, oh, I'll just hire somebody that can moderate and it'll be great. We'll get like all of the value out of it just with having this one person. And there's nothing against that person. If you're hired brand new, you want to show how well you can do things. But when you've been around for a while, like, to watch for trends in the community. And that's one of the biggest areas where you get all of these learnings. You start to pay attention to what you can kind of measure and keep track of that you might not have been keeping track of, like, how many years of experience does this person have? How long have they been at this company? Just keeping your eye out for different pieces of data that become important to your company. And once customers are talking to each other and you get to listen in on that, like a community, like calls like this, you're going to hear and see things that will impact what you have going on with your product right now, your marketing going forward, your sales enablement. And I think it's just really important to be able to do that. And it also makes it so easy to find people to move into advocacy because they're already sharing their story. So if you take that and then you turn it into, hey, you're already sharing your story, would you want to turn it into a blog post and kind of nurture them into the next steps? Community can offer a lot of value and kind of turn up your pipeline for advocacy. So that's my pitch on community, but I love the data-driven approach to it because as much as we want to look at data, I think what we can often miss is that what's important in the data keeps changing. So today it might be really important, the size of the industry, the size of the company, things like that. But as you start breaking down into those segments of customers, you notice other things like, oh, this industry, this vertical doesn't have as many layoffs, or I don't know, I'm sure there's different things. Have you come across any findings in your work that have been surprising to you?
Yeah, we've there always is. I think when you talk with people, you're always going to find some interesting things. What we found, so we typically report back to the C-suite when we've done our research and we're reporting back our findings, and it never ceases to amaze me how many of them just are unaware of some of either the challenges or some of the positive things that their customers are experiencing, just as, in being customers, but then also with specific products and services that they have. So I think that's a bit like we think we really know people, and then it is just you got it, Mary. I think it's just people things are constantly changing. I don't know how else to better say it than that. The more that you listen on and are paying attention, the more you're going to start seeing those subtle shifts. Even as you mentioned, Mary, perhaps in certain verticals or in certain customer segments, they will start doing things like using different language, or you're hearing, different situations come up that 6 months ago they weren't talking about. And community is a great place for that. Community, I would suggest, is one of the tools to use in, along with things like focus groups. So if you have something very specific you want to focus on, then it's bringing a small group, perhaps, of your advocates or potential advocates together. There's many different ways to do this. Asking through surveys, and then even creating customer advisory boards. That's another, totally different angle, but that can be very helpful in collecting that information from the customer's perspective. And so again, it's seeing that the more tools that you use, even though it may feel like, oh, it's, more to add to your plate, it actually in many ways gives you that context and clarity that you may not have had previously. And then in that way makes your job easier, because you now have confirmation. It's not so much gut feeling and guessing that you're going on.
Yeah, it does. It can make it, I think, easier in some ways that you know what to do, but it also, I think, opens up the can of worms of, oh my gosh, I got to get this information out there, with collaborating with all these other teams, and not just collaborating with them and telling them, hey, sales enablement, really think about this, but, staying on top of those things, using that, the feedback loop we use externally with customers internally so that we can get make some change, make sure these things are heard and taken care of, so that when somebody comes around and says, you know, we're churning because of XYZ, why did this happen? Well, it's not a great answer to say no one listened to me.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I've got many thoughts on this. Typically, what we do is we start with one team, usually customer success, and build in the feedback loops with customer success. And once you kind of nail that down, then it becomes easier to then go to sales and say, hey, this is what we're hearing, especially from perhaps newly onboarded customers. You know, we're hearing this. Get that feedback process happening with sales as well, because they're also going to hear different things that you may not hear, customer success may not be focusing on. And so it's trying to build those feedback loops with all the key teams across the company is really, if you can build them, start with one team and then, you know, grow from there versus trying to cast this net really wide right from the beginning.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to what I've done, where when I join a company and I'm starting to work on something, I pick the 3 teams that I can start working with and pick initiatives with those teams and kind of build a roadmap of how I see myself continuing to work with other teams as I hit different goals with the teams that I've chosen. So what might be some specific metrics we might want to look for, as far as, you know, if we were going to be focusing on expansion, which we are, or even, I don't know, is there anything specific to retention that you can think of?
I have to say, I'm gonna put my hands up and say this is not really my area of expertise. I really focus on the qualitative. So I have partners that focus on those metrics, what to do with them. Yeah. So I'm really, I wouldn't feel comfortable suggesting things when it's
No,
not
that's
really
fine.
my wheelhouse, but you want to talk about all of that unstructured data that's challenging to deal with and all of that, I'm your gal for that.
Okay, so I'm going to say I'm trying to figure out why people are churning. Do you have kind of like an interview or a list of questions that you suggest for that?
Yeah. And rather than, I think if there's something that I can impress, going back to, I'm going to just show this again. The biggest thing underpinning all of this, this customer relationship journey that customers are on is our feelings. So it's something we tend not to talk about. We tend to stay, you know, more cerebral with metrics and that everything people do is rational, but we actually know that this isn't true. If there's a disconnect between what they heard with, you know, marketing here, they become a customer and their experience is poor or their expectations aren't met, people are going to very quickly pass through this stage and churn. It's called buyer's remorse. So it's finding out, you know, we always hear this, well, it's price. Well, price wasn't the issue when they purchased. So what has happened between the time they purchased and the time they churn to lead them to the decision to churn? And neuroscientists in 2006 discovered that humans make decisions based on feelings first and they rationalize it second. So it's the same thing, Mary. It's digging down to the feelings. So if I have I know we've all done this. We've all purchased things that we felt maybe good about, and then very quickly dipped into that buyer's remorse. And we're just totally like, I hate this. I don't like it. It was too expensive, whatever the reasons are, but it's the feelings that drive that decision. So it's the same here. It's trying to not just ask those logical questions about, you know, why did you leave? Why did you become a customer? But digging down a little bit deeper to try to understand what their feelings were, what changed. And this could be for a single individual or an entire account. If you speak with different people on it, what was it specifically that did that? Maybe it was a series of things that were very small that led up to the decision. Maybe it was something big that happened, but price becomes an issue when we don't find either our expectations are met or, you know, we don't find value in whatever it is we purchase. So dig down to those feelings and find out like what happened.
That's really good. I was hoping more for like a list of questions, but dig down to those feelings is really helpful.
So the problem is with giving a list of questions is that it's really dependent on what you're trying to find out. So
Yes, the
here,
expert that says it depends.
and
Like,
that's
I've
the
been
tough part,
there.
but true enough, here are some that you can use or some iteration of them. You basically want to understand the story. What was it like before you bought? You know, what was it like once you became a customer and what happened? So what led you to purchase? What were your expectations? What was your experience like? What changed? So
Mhm.
how you couch that, you might be asking about the customer experience. You might be asking about specific products. You might be asking about, certain features, whatever it is, that's the story you're trying to gather. So build your questions on that. What was
I
it
think
like before, during, and then what led to that decision?
yeah, it helps to look back again on your own, your own experience when you've churned. Like I have a customer right now that we have a community software, and I'm going to suggest that we don't keep using it because I just don't think, one, that it's the best solution. But it's not just that I don't think it's the best solution, it's the entire experience from when we started with onboarding, and it was someone that was very inadequate at helping us, kind of made suggestions for people that are brand new at community when I've been doing it for several years. And that was fine. Okay, everybody does that. But then when we got moved from onboarding to having like a regular customer success person, now we never hear from the company like at all. And then just using the software, like all of it, none of the training was helpful, but I've had to go back through and look at their community. And luckily, they do have good documentation to find things that I need answers for. But really, underneath it's shown that it's not the flexible option that they made it sound like when we first purchased. So it's been a bit of finding different ways to handle things. Like they can't even host images for us to use in like our branding and stuff unless they go in specific fields and all this stuff. It's just, this is not what we were sold in the first place. But thinking about that, it does happen over time that we get frustrated. We're let down a little bit here, or we're let down a lot. And that's helpful in thinking about what our customers are going through as well. So yeah, I mean, you're right. It all depends. So
Anita, do you have any advice on how to make customers feel comfortable giving negative feedback on their experience?
Oh, great question, Jennifer.
yeah, it is.
As with anything, it's the person has to feel that has to feel comfortable. So there's different approaches. So what we do when we're, especially if you're interviewing or asking directly, it doesn't even have to be an interview. It's letting people know what to expect. And one thing that is often forgotten in that is to say like, hey, if you don't feel comfortable, we don't have to continue. giving people an out, how the data is going to be used, who's going to, who's going to see it. And what does it mean for them? Because there's always fear if, and this is why, third-party companies work, is there's always a bit of fear that if I'm really honest about how I feel, that somehow I'll be penalized, right? So it's trying to overcome, like, just think for yourself, the difference between having a conversation with someone where you feel you can trust them and you feel comfortable to open up versus not. And it's generally in saying, being transparent. Okay, this is the data we're collecting. This is why we're collecting it. This is how it will impact you. And always, always give people an escape. If you don't feel comfortable with a question, you can skip it, or just let me know that you don't want to discuss it further and we'll move on, and that there's no negative repercussions of that. Because especially if you're, doing this for the first time, it just might be a one-off discussion with a customer that you don't regularly speak to. It's knowing that helps bring down those defenses, and then you can get into a much deeper conversation where they'll open up and be much more willing to tell you what's really going on in their heads and what they're really feeling. And so it's taking a few minutes to establish that trust, Jennifer, makes the world a difference in the types of responses you get.
That's so true too. And I have not really thought about that, but just running the CMA weekly community, people tell me a lot of things about the companies that they've worked with and
Yep.
why they've churned from one company. And it's very often that I'll be like, well, do you want me to reach out to them and tell them to reach out to you or something, or see if there's, anything I can do to help? And they don't want to tell the main company. They don't want it to get back to them because they don't want anybody to get mad or frustrated or feel like they've done something that caused them to like lose the account or something. But you're right, being a third party is really helpful and useful. And I think several weeks ago we talked to Emily Smith, and they have somebody in, even though it's a third party that they pay, that was a customer before, that does lots of customer calls for them in the, while they're going through being a prospect. And it works really well for them, just having that third party person, even though they're paid, because people just like to open up to others a little bit more easily.
The other thing, if I can jump in and say this, I'm so glad you brought this question up, Jennifer, is you'd be surprised how much your customers want to talk about, you know what I mean? Like it's surprising that they're waiting for this. And in some ways, you reaching out and asking for their time to chat with them about their experience can actually deepen the relationship. It can make them feel more loyal. And then, to that bit you talked about earlier, Mary, with the advocacy, like it may plant the seeds of an advocacy relationship further on. I think that I know I've been guilty of this, that I think sometimes I'm bugging people, and sometimes we are, it happens, but it's to have somebody reach out who is not supposed to reach out, who's not the CSM that, at a regular cadence is reaching out, but someone else reaching out to say, hey, I'm really curious what your experience is. Do you have a few minutes to chat?
I think that's another place where the community, like a community manager, just because you can have a little bit different of a conversation and relationship, where one, like with me, I try to be very, like, I don't plan messing up, but I do mess up regularly. And I think it helps make me more approachable. That's what I tell myself in my head. But I think it helps because once you've looked at somebody and you're like, oh, this is who they are, this is what they do, it is harder to break down those walls and build a different relationship. You've got that first time interaction and first impression, and that's it. Okay, you're the customer success person who doesn't know what I need you to know. I've got to figure it out on my own. I'm not saying every customer success person is like that. I know there are companies that have really great customer success people, And that, people who get that customer success person are just like, yeah, we've got it awesome. It's going great. It makes a huge difference in whether you're going to be successful, how successful you'll be, and if you're going to be retained or churn.
Yeah. And if I can offer one thing, as much as you can, I don't care if it's just 5 questions you have, always ask the same questions. And the reason is then you can compare the answers and ensure that the responses you're getting and the data that you're analyzing is more accurate. So if you're asking questions in different ways all the time, those subtle changes to the questions, maybe you insert a word or take a couple words out or just frame it differently, will give you different responses. And so it gets really hard to sort of look back and benchmark or it's called standardizing, right? You just want to standardize, ask, even if it's just 5 core questions or 3 core questions, the exact same questions, so that then you can look back and go, when I asked this specific question, these were the answers we got. This is what we noticed changed over time.
I have a question about that. Does it help to have your 3 to 5 main questions that you always consistently ask the same, but then maybe have similar questions that are rephrased just a little bit different, because sometimes that'll open up the customer to get to say a little bit more?
Wendy, that's it. You've got it. You got it. So you have your main questions that you're going to ask, and then you always have probing questions, right?
Okay, right.
Tell me a little bit more. How did you feel when that happened? And that becomes your sort of suite of extra questions to go deep, because we all do this, right? We give our surface level answers. This is the socially acceptable, I don't want this person to think bad of me if I actually told them what I'm really thinking. Like, we have all those social faces that we put on. And sometimes we're aware of it, sometimes we're not. So, when Jennifer asked that question, how do you kind of get past that? That's where you have to establish the trust. And to your point, ask those questions sometimes slightly differently. And then also ask for them to expand on the answers they give. And the more people realize that you're going in with a state of curiosity, these are not interviews like check boxes. Okay, I'm going to ask this question next. It's, it's not like an intake form. What this is if you can go in with a curious and open mind, people really feel that, and therefore are much more willing when you ask the question just slightly differently, even though they already answered it, that now they'll go deeper and they'll bring you new sort of nuances that they didn't offer you the first time. So great. I love it. I love it.
I found that one thing that helps after a customer answers a question is just to wait and see if there's more. And if you wait a little bit, then they'll sort of feel like they need to say something, and they'll start talking about things they hadn't planned to talk about. Or you can work in support. Those people complain all the time to you. So
yeah. Okay, so I can't see myself on screen, but can you read what that says?
Stop talking.
Yeah,
Nice.
there's a reason why I have this card so readily available. For that reason, Kathy, is if we're so quick to always jump in and fill the space, again, people like to kind of like say something, and then they kind of are feeling you out. Like, okay, can I go a little further? Do I feel safe enough? Really, that's what's driving all of this. If they trust you, they feel safe. And if they feel safe that you're not going to, take this information and use it against them, all of that stop talking, that pause will give them enough to go, okay, you know what, now I'm going to really open up and say more about how I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, most importantly, because those feelings will drive. They will. And it could be, and this has happened to us too. We've had people come into interviews where they're on the fence about whether they want to stay or not. And because somebody was there listening, even though we were asking standard questions, they knew it was an interview. it was remarkable. And it still surprises me when it happens, when they'll say, wow, I feel better. And now it's kind of changed my opinion a little bit about my experience in the company, just by, and we're a third party. We're not even the company, but because it kind of, we got into those deeper areas with them, they were like, okay, you know what? Maybe it isn't quite as bad as it seemed. Or people have actually talked themselves out of it once they had
Wow.
heard what their own reasons were. We had this happen not long ago. It was just like baffling to watch. Not baffling in a good way. Like it was, do you know what I mean? The person talked themselves kind of out of their negative mindset around the company, because once they started talking, they realized, you know what? Maybe it wasn't as bad as I first judged it to be. So that stop talking and incredibly powerful.
Well, I hate to say it, but we are at the end of our call. So I have to cut us off just a little bit because I think there are a couple of things that others wanted to say here. Ari, do you have enough time to talk about what you wanted to talk about? I know it's only a couple of minutes. If
Oh,
not,
I don't want to talk about it. I only want to talk about it if people want to learn about it. I have no need to push it, and I can wait till next week. Totally.
Okay, yeah, let's just do that next week because I'm going to kind of promote that we're doing next week's call. It's open discussion, but it'll be around doing more with less because that's something that's really hitting our, what do we want to call it? Our profession?
I really do want to leave everyone, and this is from a personal conversation I even had with Nick Mehta, and it's really around doing less more and how you reframe the doing more with less, because it's not efficient and everything loses when you try and do more with less. You become less effective, less efficient. All of your programs suffer from it. And so it's collectively wiser to focus on what are the top prioritizations and how do you actually prioritize. That's really important, how you bucket. And Leslie knows this, and how you can get buy-in on that prioritization. So that way everyone's aligned with why you're doing certain things and you're not doing others, and why those are on the
What
back.
was that? What did you call that? Not doing more with less, but doing what?
Doing less more.
Doing
So
less more.
Yeah, it's basically like, let's do less better. Let's get better at these few things. Right?
That's a good point. Yes.
But being
Yeah.
able to prioritize and say no.
What's that?
Yeah. You got to have confidence to say no too. Prioritize
Well,
and
first
say no.
but you also have to get buy-in on the prioritization first and have full buy-in, full transparency. Then it becomes much easier to say no. You know who's really good, where I pulled a lot of this from, is in the engineering side of the house, right? They can get very good at completing their tasks, and if it's outside of their scope, they will shut you down. They won't waste time on it, and you don't take offense to that because it's very clear what their scope is. Right. And so that's all it is. Now, I'm not saying we don't ask for favors, beg, barter, and plead, but I am saying that it's easy when the scope is clear. The problem is we don't know our scope half the time. Let's be real, right? I've even had the point where people ask to help me, and I don't know where to get help because I don't even have it all collected, because I have so many balls in the air at one time, I can't even keep it. And then I even had a point in my career where I got offended when my boss was asking me basically, what do you do? Right? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm executing on this and this and this and this. But when I thought about it, I was like, I don't even know all the things that I'm doing. I'm not even keeping track of everything that I'm doing. How can I expect anybody else to know it if I don't even know it about myself? Nobody else has a crystal ball that they're just constantly watching and monitoring us, right? So it's a step in learning that, like, oh my God, I am not as clear and transparent as I could be as well. And that's part of the problem.
And advocating for yourself and the work that you do. So that'll be great for next week. I kind of we are over time just a little bit. Love you, Ari. Thank you for sharing that. Leslie, did you have something you wanted to share? Because you were looking like you wanted to share something.
Nope. I just wanted to say hi to everyone.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you all for jumping on. And let's get on next week and talk again. And thank you, Anita, for coming. I will get you the recording, and I had a couple people already request it. So have a good weekend and talk to you all soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.